Millions of despairing men, women, and little children, victims of a system that makes men torture and imprison innocent people.
You cannot shake hands with a clenched fist.
Produced by a nuclear exchange would be carried by wind and water and soil and sea to the far corners of the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
We're not saying that planet Earth is coming to an end. We're saying that planet Earth is about to be refurbished, spaded under, and have another chance to serve as a garden for another civilization.
Most of the people in here are just your reflections. They're your mistakes.
1776 will commence again if you try to take our firearms.
1 million of the planet's 8 million species are threatened.
You are what you repeatedly do. Therefore, excellent talk be a habit, not an act.
Your lives and the credibility of the United Nations is at stake.
I've seen him kill himself.
The reason this is such an interesting time is not only because we're on the threshold of the end of this civilization.
They're trying to take you out with bullshit.
The experience of the past 2 years has proven beyond doubt that no nation can appease the Nazis.
Those who can hear me, I say, do not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish.
In the language of the U.S. Department of Defense, these are unidentified aerial phenomena.
Roswell is a very interesting place. A lot of people that would like to know what's going on. There's very compelling evidence that we may not be alone.
This is the Garden of Doom.
Welcome, everyone, into Garden of Doom. This week, it's going to be a little bit more like Garden of Light. And we're going to focus a little bit more on the garden. And don't let the name fool you. The Garden of Doom is still a garden, just like any other garden with plants and flora and fauna. It needs sunlight, it needs water, it needs nutrients in its soil, it needs air. So today we're going to focus a little bit more on garden than on doom. My guests this week were sort of like almost like secondhand referrals through. I'm just going to use the Twitter handle because I wasn't authorized to use the name, Perceptions Today. So check out that Twitter site. But he's referred guests such as R.N. Vu to us and Robert Phoenix, among others. So very excited to have some more guests sort of that were led to us from that direction, which has been a lot of fun. So without further ado, my guests they are they're teaching and educating and following a path on something called Light Dialogic. And my two guests are Eileen Meyer. She is a mystic, visionary, author, lifetime contactee, and translator of light sound frequency data. Over her lifetime, she was coached by her guides to feel and interpret the cosmic language through a series of visions, dreams, downloads, and bioenergetic upgrades. She perceives this musical streaming intelligence as coming from a luminous group of godlike beings, emissaries from both ancient and future aspects of ourselves, which is very cool. We've spoken to Maya Christine and M.G. Stevens and some other folks who've talked about similar things, as well as some of our friends over at Voodoo Authentica who talk about this a lot, and a lot of the shamans. And that brings us to our next guest, who is Eduardo. He's an author and a Mayan Aikij. I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong. He will correct me later in a few moments. In the tradition of the Kichi Maya, I'm sure I'm pronouncing that wrong also, or there's a pretty good chance of it. He was initiated on the Camino de Agua and Camino del Fuego. I think I got those right. And has walked this path with respect to these sacred teachings for over 20 years. And he generously serves his community through sacred wisdom, ceremony, and the practice of the ancient art of Ike or IQ, mystical spiritual breath. Again, he is here. He's going to correct me on all of my mispronunciations, which I'm sure are bountiful. So thank you both for being here. And just in whatever terms you would like to, just introduce yourselves and improve upon the biographies that I provided.
I'll just say hi, Jeff, and thank you for having us on. And thank you to Perceptions Today and all of those who gather with that group. I haven't been on Twitter in a while, but it's just because I've been so busy. But I do miss connecting with all those folks, and I'm happy to be here with you. And I'll let Eduardo fill you in on the pronunciations.
It's okay, Jeff. Very few people know how to pronounce what we call ourselves. My name is Eduardo Griego Gonzalez. I'm an Achkich, which means a lord or a counter of the days of the Ki'iche Maya tradition in the Mayan calendar system that we use. That means that I've been initiated on both the water path as well as the path of fire. And the whole plan is to have people come and learn from the Ki'iche Maya there in Guatemala, in Central America and Mesoamerica, what human beings are supposed to know about living on planet Earth. And it's all based on their sacred calendar system. We've all heard of the Mayan calendar and the complications that came up in 2012 about the misinterpretations of what the calendar was and how it was supposed to work and so forth. In any case, we're measuring basically the movement of the planets and our sun and the planets that rotate around it, around in a big circle of time that we call time. There is no time, actually, it's just movement. And it rotates around our central sun. In the English language, she's referred to as Alcyone. And in the Ki'iche Maya teachings, we call her Hun Akpu. And so that's in a nutshell what the Mayan calendar is really based on, is this movement around our center.
Thank you for that. That's a great explanation. And yeah, the first thing I wrote down, like every now and then you'll see me writing notes, and the first thing I wrote down was the obvious one, 2012. 2012 was supposed to be the end of the Mayan calendar, which a lot of people took as the harbinger of the end of everything. I mean, there's always some group or groups that are going to take everything as a signal of the end of everything. And even on a show called Garden of Doom, we don't subscribe to that so literally. But what was the whole deal with 2012? And was it just that the Mayans could only write so many years into the future before they ran out of space and said, this is enough. This is far enough into the future. Said we'll do another calendar, another 500 years of show, and we'll cover the rest. Or is there something to this? Is there something more technical to it?
Actually, there's a lot to it. However, the reason why the year 2012 came up is that there was a stele, or a stone carving, that was found that had a date inscribed on its face that, when interpreted in or extrapolated into the Gregorian calendar, came to that time in 2012. December 21st, 2012 was the so-called date that was there. There was a lot of misunderstanding regarding that calendar system. And so, in essence, it was just misinterpreted, is all I can really say. And I think, like a lot of things, Jeff, there are people that really want to use fear to take people's energy away from them, actually. And so this time was planted as, okay, this is going to be it. This is going to be the end of the world. And however, nothing was ever said like that by the elders of the Mayan teachings, of any of the indigenous teachings of the Americas. Everything was taught to us that we are in this giant movement, in our movement, what we call the universe. We call it the universe. It's different titles and different names in the Ki'iche teachings. But it's just the measuring of time, of our time on planet Earth, where we go around in a circle for 24 hours and around the sun in 365 days, and all of that stuff is taken into consideration. However, it's all based on this 25,920 year cycle of Earth and our planetary system, our sun and all the planets rotate around it to move around Alcyone. And the whole concept of this time is measured on what it's like to be a human being living on planet Earth at this time. And again, time doesn't exist in their world. It's simply a way of measuring the movement around our central sun.
All right, let me see if I understand this correctly, because I know enough about astrology and astronomy to be dangerous, but a little bit more than dangerous. Hope. So my understanding is that this 25,920 years is actually how long it actually takes for our movements for the entire zodiac, the 12 signs of the zodiac, even the poor 13th one that got kicked out, to make it fully around their entire procession. So I actually made a joke on Facebook earlier. There was, that, if you need a reason to live, just know that if the Sphinx is really 9,000 years old, that you only have to wait another 15,000 or so years for the celestial year to conclude. And then when we're back in Leo, and the riddle of Sphinx will be solved. So just last enough 15,900 years and you'll be fine. So basically, I can't use, I don't know the right words, but it's basically something to do with the ecliptic of how we measure our equator to a celestial equator, to the sun, to some center point wherever you want to start the zodiac, whatever it is. If you start at Aries, it takes just under 26,000 years for Aries to rotate and be in the same space again from our vantage point in the universe. So that's the procession we're talking about. And as you say, time is just a measurement of the movement. It's an artificial construct of the measurement of the movement. How'd I do with that?
Pretty well. I don't quite understand all of the dimensions of normal astrology. The zodiac, I guess, is the correct way to refer to it. However, I can say that basically you got it right, that it is about the movement of our entire cosmos, as we know it, to move around the center of our universe. No, that's not correct. Not universe. It would be, the question comes in, is Sirius the center of our super universe, and is Alcyone the center of our so-called planetary system, that we make this big rotation around Alcyone, but we're also making a bigger giant rotation around Sirius, and I think that's the way to look at it. What we get confused about is trying to keep all of this information about the zodiac and how the movement of Pluto now coming into Capricorn or coming into Aquarius. Yeah, it's very convoluted and confusing to me. And I like the way that the elders of the Mesoamerican teachings have taught this information, is that it is all about movement, and not to get wrapped up in the names of things, but to understand that everything is moving all the time. And as we are moving, there are aspects of our sun and our central sun that are affecting all of the things we experience as what we call life. As you know, that our sun is producing a lot of CME, or coronal mass ejections, as well as solar flares. We call them, so some people call them solar flares. That sun energy that we're receiving is part of the light that we receive. According to these ancient teachings, we're also receiving light from the central sun. Again, we refer to her as Alcyone. The Maya call her Hunakpu. And it is the mother sun of 7 other suns that rotate around her. So in fact, there's 8 suns that make up the Pleiades. And as all of those suns are moving around her on a closer circle, we're moving around in a very large circle, a very 25,000, almost 26,000 year cycle around her. And
okay, so
go ahead.
Let me. So Sirius, that is in what people consider to be the paw of the bear. Now, is it in well, not bear, in Taurus, right? Is it in the? Where is Sirius? I should just ask that.
Well, Sirius,
which in the constellation that I have a feeling, like if I ask you if the zodiac signs in Maya are the same, Scorpio, Libra areas, that there's probably different symbols. But if just using the symbols that, if you go into the newspaper today in America, where would Sirius be? Because I know that Sirius is a fixed point. It's either the foot of the Archer in Sagittarius, or it's either in the Bear or the Bull, somewhere there.
I don't know that.
Yeah, I actually don't know, but I can tell you that Sirius is in the center of our entire what we call super universe that's moving around her, around the sun, this light.
It looks like Eileen's probably going to.
It's in the constellation of Canis Major.
Oh, Leo. So okay, it's in the paw of Leo. So
okay.
Well, maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, it's in a fixed point. And what are the equivalent zodiac signs in Maya? Obviously, they're not Scorpio, Libra, Virgo. I mean, do they have? Were any of the symbols the same? I mean, it's amazing that because the 25,900 figure isn't just the Egyptians figured it out, others figured it out too, and they all have different symbols. I mean, we all seem to have adopted the ones because I don't know, Rome, I don't know, whatever, somebody.
Right. Yeah.
But what were there? Whether they're corresponding 12, if in fact it is 12. I mean, I believe it is because I remember that they had 12 30-day months and then sort of like 5 to 6 days of sort of what they call dead days, which were basically like festivals, sort of, or where nobody worked.
If I may, let me correct you. There are 18 months of 20 days in the Mayan Hab, what we call the HAAB is the way it's spelled, Hab calendar. And there's 1 month of 5 days. And they call that the Yeb, and it means the time out of time. And it's the time when we shouldn't be doing anything except, sitting on Mother Earth and just connecting. In any case, the understanding is that these 18 months of 20 days are all different names than any of the zodiac signs that we presently think of when we study that aspect. I think there's only one that looks the same, and it's the Scorpion. However, they don't call it that. It's the essence of it is that we have one called that refers to Zotz, which is the bat. We have a serpent, which is called Khan. So all of these different names make up their understanding of what our local zodiac system would be. So again, it gets a whole nother world to be looking at both, try to compare them. The essence that I think is interesting, bringing up the star system, is that in the area of Khan energy, we call that the Ishmat in the Ki'iche language, means the place of the Pleiades, where there are 7 rattles of the rattlesnake's tail. And that the head of the serpent, what we call the mouth of Kukulkan, is actually on Earth, and it represents a portal. And that portal is where apparently beings could enter and go to the Pleiades, which is 444 light years away. They could be there in a matter of moments, let's say. Again, there is no such thing as time, so it's difficult to communicate what happens. It's simply they're there, and they can also come and go. And basically the teachings of the Ki'iche coming from the Pol Pol Vu, that book that was written about the creation of these people, they refer to these 4 beings that came from the Pleiades as Balams. Balam is the word for jaguar beings that came from the Pleiades. So it takes us into a whole nother aspect of understanding the connection between Earth and these planets or these places where people live in the stars, which I find very exciting and interesting, and it gives me hope.
I find it fascinating,
yeah.
And I'm already, conceiving. So, one, I want everyone to forgive me for what I was referring to, or my point of reference, is I read a book by a guy named Gary Jennings called Aztec. And so almost all of my knowledge of everything in Mesoamerican sort of culture, aside from podcasts and reading and some other guests, comes from there. And so that's where that came from. And it's probably an enormous mistake to think that Aztec and Mayan is identical. There may be overlaps or borrowing from each other, but it's not the same. So that's obviously on me. When you say the 6 suns in Pleiades, are these the same stars that people often refer to as the 7 sisters?
Well, that's the 7 sisters represent the center, Alcyone, and 6 other stars that are near her. And then our sun is also one of the family of those stars. It's probably the best word I could use.
And this portal, it almost sounds like the Bifrost in Norse mythology as well. So portals is certainly, and I mean portals in mythology is and theosophy. I mean, Muhammad rode a rainbow up to heaven. I mean, what's that if not a portal? So things that I use those comparisons, which is a little bit dangerous, just as to say, well, that sounds weird. No, it doesn't. You just never thought about it in those terms before.
Right.
So anyway, I just wanted to bring it down to a little bit of sidewalk level, which is where I exist. But yeah, that was fantastic. I don't know if you wanted to say more right now, or if we wanted to let Eileen jump in and sort of
sure.
Please give her
Eileen.
Not really sure what to comment on, except that I really respect Eduardo and the wisdom that he's gathered from the elders in Guatemala, as well as his studies and his practice of the ceremonies and his teaching of it to his students. I was his student back in 2021. We started 2001. And I walked the sacred Mayan fire path with Eduardo and ended up in Tikal for my initiation. And I chose not to practice to become a priest. I knew that I had another kind of mission, but it was very much hand in hand with the Mayan wisdom. I just want to say, too, that the reason why Eduardo and I are partnering on this Light Dialogic project, we've actually partnered on many spiritual teaching platforms, if you will, over the years, because what we see happening is the new information, or quote, new information coming in through the messages that started coming through me after my Kundalini awakening. Everything changed after that with my brain and the worldview and perceptions. Everything opened up, and it took a lot of time. And I would say it's still taking it's still in process. It always will be, I feel, because it's expansion now. It points to this time as an intersection, and this is what correlates with the Mayan wisdom, that this is an opportunity for us to bridge from our ancient roots, our ancestral lineage, kind of connecting all of that together. And when I say ancestral, I'm almost want to say primordial, just this movement into a new way of being, new to us, way of being that is possible because we were designed to be what some people like to call divine humans. We have far more within us in our inner technology than we've been told. And we could go off in a gazillion different directions from just that statement of why we're living in a world that looks like it does, and why it's so confusing, and why it's so important to rediscover the inner realms, the inner consciousness. Because once we start moving within, we start to have a lot of aha moments or revelations, if you will, about, oh, now that I'm using my, what we could term feminine technology, because the feminine has been suppressed. And the reason why we're also focused on the mental data, there's a whole other way of perceiving and receiving data. And this is what my contact over the years has shown me or revealed to me. It's like I've become a student of this inner intelligence that first presented as ETs or external beings. And because I knew that it was never quite right to find a box that exists in our external world, like everybody's got the names and the terms, and it fits here and it fits here. Boom, done. Now we don't have to have anxiety about it anymore because we know what it means, right? No, we don't. That exploration goes on and on and on an internal level. Then we begin to understand, oh, here's what the serpent means in the portal, and we can't just understand it from our external projections into the world, or from opinions that we each might have based on what each of us read and how we digested that data, right? It's this data that is cosmic, that is who we are through the field. We can connect to that, and we can get it, straight it from, I want to say the horse's mouth, but we can get it straight from the source instead of arguing with each other about what's right and what's wrong. And then one more point. Once we start to establish this resonance within ourselves, we start activating more of this internal wisdom and understanding. That's when we start to build resonance. And then we can say, oh, what Jeff is saying about this thing that he just said, it actually resonates. It's like it resonates in my body. I know this is true because I discovered the truth of it within my own consciousness. So that's how we begin to relate, again, from internal to external rather than just external and ignoring the internal process and connection.
A few questions for you. When did you first start experiencing these contacts?
Childhood.
I hear that a lot from people who relay, similar types of I'll just say stories, histories for themselves. Now, I know that the audience and dare say some of the prior guests, they're out there screaming, "That's a ghost. That's your ancestors. That's an angel. That's a demon. That's a jinn. That's the Fae folk.
That's the daemon. Yeah.
The daemon.
Yeah.
That's God. Whatever.
Sure. Okay.
It's a luminary. What you're saying is the name doesn't matter.
The name doesn't matter.
And whether and in some of these philosophies, I'll just say, some of these entities can be both good or bad. Now, in some cases, they can make the decision, but maybe it's more what you do with it, what we do with it, the recipient does with which is how we interpret it to be good or bad. Maybe they're never bad. It's just how we interpret or how we react. If you react with fear or whatever, maybe you interpret it as bad. But I'm dying to ask you to put a name on it, but I know that you're going to say I can't put a name on it. I can just say, an internal yet external intelligent spirit or entity. I don't know. So I'm trying to come up with an acronym, but I can't, so I'll just skip over that. Did you always know that it was benevolent or educational or beneficial? Did you ever feel fear or feel that it was like a malevolent presence?
Excellent question, Jeff. I was in childhood, it was absolutely benevolent. It was in harmony with my being. Nobody had told me otherwise. Nobody had told me that this is bad or this is wrong or you're crazy. It was only when I started to suppress it and forget about it that when it did return again, it was absolutely terrifying. Of course, that's where fear comes from. It's like I lost touch with who I am. So of course I'm going to be afraid. I don't know what this huge presence is. I'm going to interpret it in a fearful way because I don't know who I am, right? I'm trying to fit into this place. I'm trying to go along with the program. And as much as it was painful to reduce myself to this strange world and you know, the wonder stops here. You need to start thinking about educating yourself for, you know, a good job and making money and, you know, all of the programs that are in place to keep us entrained to this limited spectrum of reality. Now, what I learned in childhood was we are connected to so much more. This gets suppressed for all of us. And so the beings, okay, it's a matter of integrating over time, understanding that these are essentially aspects of ourselves that we have yet to integrate. So they come knocking on the door and they say, you know, for what feels like on my side, boo, like, okay, we're going to take you out through your window now and we're going to float you above the parking lot. And then we're going to shoot you out into space and we're going to have a lot of conversations and help you remember some of these things. So they have been teaching me, I put in air quotes always because we have language here. And at that time, it felt like they, okay, and they were scary. It was because I had unfamiliarized myself with these aspects of who I am. So it's a process of knowing that we are in charge at all times. And they gave me a practice, an emotional awareness practice that essentially helps you heal and then embody more. So the whole idea, what they're teaching me is it is all about embodiment now. But if there's no place for this more to go because there's so much trauma and so much suppressed in the unconscious, the underworld is another way of referencing that, then we just end up staying stuck and we continue to loop in this reality, this matrix-like reality, because we don't know who we are.
So none of us here, the three of us, are 30-somethings. We're all north of that. I'm going to stop there. The point of this is that obviously from childhood till 2001, when you met Eduardo, till now, like what path did you take and how did you encounter or learn about Eduardo? And I'll probably ask him a similar question, you know, and then at the point where the two of you intersected, you know, it'll sort of be a joint show at that point.
Sure. I'll just say for most of my life, I was just floundering, trying to figure out where I fit in. And I wrote a book about it, like just how, you know, where do I put this? No one can really help me because I can't find a place to put it comfortably. I can find some things, you know, like, oh, it's kind of that, you know, and I can sort of relate to the ufology community, but only a little, you know. Experiencers, I could relate with experiencers. In fact, some of the experiencers I've been in touch with for many years are in Light Dialogic, and we're continuing this evolution together with, you know, coming online, I like to call it, and then communicating with each other across the board, not trying to explain it all the time to other people, but to speak directly to each other about, you know, and generating resonance. I'll leave it at that. And then more ahas and revelations. Just it goes exponential when, you know, I think it's like the where two or more exponential resonance. I would have visions. I would have visitations. One of them was that was completely like off the wall, like, what the hell's going on? I lived in north of San Diego, in San Marcos, California. And I got married for the second time, and I was desperately trying to be normal. I was trying to, there's a lot of activity, and it was like, I just want the white picket fence, and I the dog and, the kids and all of that. But the more I tried to do that, the more experiences came. So one time I was taking some college courses, and I was studying in the living room, and all of a sudden all this energy comes over me, and I'm just like, it's like very magnetic, and I can barely move. And then something will happen, or I'm communicated to. So in my mind's eye, this Mesoamerican man was in my living room, and he was like, stop what you're doing. This is ridiculous. Kind of like communicating to me about avoiding who I am and what needs to happen here. So he gets down on his knees, and he's pounding the ground, and he's in this garb, I can see it all. I even sketched it afterwards. And he said, it's all about the mother now. It's all about the mother. Get on with it. Get on with it. He's like, he was mad. And I didn't feel threatened or anything, but it's like I filed that away. And then I'm a singer-songwriter. So I had written, what ended up being 3 CDs of music after the Kundalini experience in 1998. And I was out performing and, kind of small tours and performing in downtown Santa Fe. It was every Friday night at La Posada Hotel. And when I went on a break, a friend came up and said, oh, you have to meet this guy that's here. He's a Mayan priest. And of course, I got this zing inside, like, what? Maybe he can help me understand who that guy was in my living room. And so I'll let Eduardo take over from there.
Let him take over from there. But actually, I would like to know what's your origin story?
Wow, boy, that's a good question.
It's a great story. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but after many years of desperately trying to be successful in the world, I became fairly successful at owning my own company. I realized that I couldn't work for other people, and I had to work for myself. And then I started doing well and had an advertising marketing firm in Boulder, and doing very well. And long story short, I decided to take a trip to New Mexico and visit a friend and do some fly fishing there with him. And I had a run-in with a wolf, and I'm making this quick. And in this meeting with this wolf, who put its paws on my shoulders and licked my face like it knew me, something happened to me, something I can't explain. And within that few moments afterwards, and this all happened in Chimayo, New Mexico, which is where there's a santuario, a sacred building there that maybe you're familiar with, I don't know. In any case, after this meeting with the wolf, I started hearing a woman's voice in my left ear telling me that the Mayan prophecies are within me. They're within your dwelling is the way that it was said to me, but it meant are within you. And from that time forward, everything that I thought I knew, I realized I didn't know. And I had this great desire to learn everything I could learn about the Maya. Because if I heard that voice and I was either crazy, I had literally gone insane, or something else occurred that I can't explain. And so over a few years, I found out that that particular village was always visited by Mayan elders, and they would come there to gather dirt from this sacred pond, actually, that had wolves that lived around there. And they used to call it the healing energy of the wolf. And they named this village TZI, is the beginning of the spelling, Tsi Mayo. And then later on, it became known as Chimayo when they spelled it and made the road signs. But this place was famous in the elders of Mesoamerica for the earth that you could go and gather and use it in healing practices back wherever you went, wherever you came from. And that is how my story started, to try and find out everything I could about these Mayan teachings, these prophecies. And then I soon decided to take a trip and went to Guatemala to work with an elder, a Mayan elder, and he became ill. So I ended up not working with him, but I met another one while I was there. And he did a Mayan horoscope for me, which we call a cosmic identity. And he said, "You don't know who you are, but we do. And you're hula hook bats." And that means the 11 monkey is the what would mean in English, and that you're here to teach these Mayan teachings. And we've been waiting for you, is what he said to me. And so that's how my story began, how I started my path on learning more, or everything I could, about the Mayan teaching. And then
I don't know if it's a coincidence or not, but it might be serendipity, it might be synchronization, it may be another one where you're reaching for something that isn't there. But Hermes, the messenger, who is also associated with so many other gods in so many different pantheons, also that has messenger characteristics, is often associated with the wolf. And so once you said that, I got a little shiver up my back, because I was just reading something on that yesterday, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the wolf is, the wolf, until then I'm thinking of the wolf as something scary, the Loki's son, the comer of Ragnarok. And then I'm hearing the wolf, you think of tricksters and whatever, but now I'm hearing the wolf is messenger. And here you are telling me that was your story. So, very cool. I hope that doesn't sound too trite, but I think that, like Eileen said, it's a great story. So you actually pursued your path, and you found elders who said, "We've been waiting for you, and we're going to teach you." So I guess if we fast forward a little bit, they taught you the way or ways, and you met Eileen at some point, and so that's sort of where our intersection point comes.
Exactly.
And then how is it that you came to decide, this is what I have learned, this is what I have learned. Hey, but you can put your chocolate in my peanut butter. And
I love it.
Well, she was performing at this beautiful little hotel in Santa Fe, and I lived outside of Santa Fe. And I had been hearing all around about what amazing singer this woman was, and that you have to go to La Posada Hotel and listen to her. So a friend who I really respected said that he wanted me to have dinner with him that evening, and we would go hear this woman sing. And that's how Eileen and I met. And when I heard her sing, I was amazed, blown away. An amazing voice, just beautiful music that she had written. And so when she walked over to me and said, "I understand you're a Mayan priest," that was the magical moment that I was able to just say, "Well, I am, but I don't really know what that means, but yes, that's true. I have been initiated, and I'm not really a priest," because that's not the word we would use. We would use a student is probably the best word we could use, as a student of these ancient teachings that we're connected to. Yeah. And then she proceeded to tell me about how she had a vision of an elder who looked like a Mayan elder. Mesoamerican elder was a good word. And how he had told her, we have to work for Mother Earth. And I knew that, because that's what I had come back with, the same lesson from Guatemala, was that we have to do everything we can to preserve this beautiful planet, because she is life to us. And we have to do whatever we can to do that. And through these ceremonies, that's what we do. We keep making these offerings back to the earth to give thanks for our life here. And that's how we met. And I explained what I had just come back. I had just returned from being initiated on the fire path, doing 21 fires all over the temples, all over the Mesoamerican area there, mostly in Guatemala. So when we sat and talked, I realized that she really had an interest in it. And I actually didn't really know where I was. I was trying to fit back into the world again. I was, I had been doing ceremonies for the last year. And so I didn't really know how to fit in. And I don't fit in, actually, never will. And then she mentioned something like that too. She said, I've never been able to fit in. And we started talking, and that's how we started discussing these. And she came to one of my fire ceremonies, and that was when she decided that she wanted to follow this path of why do people do these fire ceremonies, and what do they mean? And what is this calendar system all about, and what does it mean? And so there's, that's when it all started to come together, because everything in the Chol Kich, which is the name that we refer to as the sacred human calendar of the Maya. Chol meaning to shuck, take the husks off of the day, and Kich is the day. So to shuck the day, to take the coverings off of the energy of each day. And that teaching, those teachings are just the whole backbone of this Mesoamerican culture that the Azteca and the Tolteca and all the indigenous peoples of all of Mesoamerica were doing some kind of ceremony revolving around the sacred teachings of the sacred calendar. And so when Eileen got interested in it, and I started sharing the wisdom with her, she said, wow, this is about the earth, and this is what I want to learn. And so that's when we started working together. And light was always the key. This was the key to the whole thing. You see, it was about us. We're human beings, but we're light beings living in these physical, amazing, wonderful, and fantastic bodies. And there's this being inside of us, these light beings that are within these bodies, that are actually more capable of doing things that we don't even think about doing, but we are capable. We've just forgotten, you see. But the Egyptians knew it. The Nordic people knew it. All of the ancient civilizations knew it. We just forgot when we started to become civilized. And so M was getting it from her source of beings that were coming and talking and sharing with her and teaching her. And I was getting it from these ancient people in Mesoamerica who didn't want to speak English, and they didn't want to speak Spanish. They want to speak about their teachings because they know that's the truth. And we've been all waiting to hear it.
Well, I'm Mr. Nosy, and I've been looking behind both of you to see so it looks like behind Eileen is the world tree, possibly either in the center of the earth or in some sort of in the galaxy or the universe. And it's not just Yggdrasil, you've got the top and the bottom, the roots. So the whole tree of life, world tree, which I think is actually called Maya in a lot of places. Yeah. And behind Eduardo, we've got a jaguar, which of course you were visited by 4 jaguars, the 4 jaguar entities. And I know that jaguar was a very regal, from my knowledge of reading one book which was fiction, called Aztec, the Jaguar Knights were like the highest knights in, next to the high chief. But also, there's also other probably authentic artwork. It's probably all authentic, but I also see something that looks like maybe a cross and maybe the Virgin. So are you also a Christian?
I wouldn't call myself a Christian, but I have a very firm confidence within me that Christ did exist and did live a life in Mesoamerica at one time. And the story of this master teacher is true from what I can tell and what I feel.
Yeah, I've heard that, again, Hermes, Thoth, Osiris, that Jesus, that it's been the same entity, either living in 30 different bodies or coming in different. And I've heard about the Maya, the different ages of man. If you could take a stab at explaining the calendar and the ages of man, and then we're definitely going to get into resonance and the connection to the pyramids, because all of these cultures also build huge structures that seem to be beyond their abilities, what we think their abilities should have been to build at those times. And then we're going to go straight into your project now, because we've been taking a lot of time and we barely mentioned it.
You mean, when you say take a stab, are you talking about using a sacred obsidian
Obsidian.
knife
No, I don't want
to try to cut it's the history
If you
of
think I actually know how to phrase the question properly,
Yeah.
I mean, you taught me. I don't.
It is a beautiful obsidian knife that he just showed.
Yeah.
Too bad
and
that people
it
can't
has
see it.
a deer antler as the handle, so that shows that it's connected to the Nawal, the animal spirits that connect us all. And so, but I guess in a nutshell, the history of humankind. How far do you want to go back? Because
I'll ride with you as far back as you want to go.
Okay, well, we're finding out that. Well, let's take Göbekli Tepe, for example, which was about 12,000 to 13,000 years ago. But even then, if you go to, was the Sphinx created just 6,000 years ago, or was it really done 13,000 years ago? You see, we're just now starting to find out. In addition, because of LiDAR, we're capable of looking from a plane down and seeing beneath all the trees what was there. We're finding 10,000 ruins in Brazil area, in the Amazon, and all over Mesoamerica, of ancient people who lived there for thousands of years. And just Tikal alone was 1,830 years, of success. And then they split and went off and lived in the jungle and created other places like Palenque and like Chichen Itza. So I don't know. I mean, to me, human beings are a part of this super universe and may have been here 1 million years ago, and I think they probably were, and successfully, and took care of the planet successfully, and nurtured it and lived off of it, and yet never damaged the streams. Everything was pure water, and the earth was clean, and the air was clean, until we went into this dark 500, I don't know, 1,000 years. I don't know how long it's been that we went into this dark sleep that the elders talk about, saying we're going to go to sleep, so cover everything over with dirt. And they did. They covered all their temples over, just like Göbekli Tepe. They covered them all over with dirt. They knew we were going to go to sleep, and here we are waking up. So I don't know how to answer that question. Yeah.
That's fair enough. I mean, I can say with a high degree of objectivity that something, I don't know exactly what it was, but something changed in the way of humankind's relationship with the earth and each other around the time that we went from going from hunters and gatherers to settlements and farming. And even just the act of farming started the destruction process of soil. And it's sort of been a cycle ever since then. And that also seems to be when, I mean, nothing's uniform, but when a lot of the cultures that we all sort of came from, the root cultures, sort of went from matriarchal to patriarchal. Mm-hmm. And it's, and I'm a guy for those who don't know it. Very, very pleased to be just a plain vanilla cisgendered male. So I'm not saying men are bad and women are great, but there is something that changed, and it seems like for the worse, from being the hunters and gatherers to being, in air quotes, the more civilized, agrarian settlement, citified, civilized persons. And I'm pretending that everybody lived in perfect peace and harmony before that, but no one can really say that we have been since.
True. Yeah.
So there's something to that for sure. All right. So you guys met, you talked, obviously you made a connection. It seemed like both of your experiences resonated with each other. And over the last 20 years, you've been co-students, I'll call it, just to use Eduardo's terms. I think that Eileen would say that Eduardo was a teacher in a large way, but I know that Eduardo's going to shake his head and say, no, we taught each other and just taught each other different things. Mm-hmm. And you felt compelled that was a synergy there, that you were teaching the same things, maybe just from different perspectives, and that Eduardo could give a certain vantage point to it and Eileen could give another. And I know a lot of it has to do with the light and the sound. And so I'd like to hear about that, but I don't want to forget about the connection of pyramids and the pyramidal structure, and how a lot of people are saying that they are basically almost like resonance batteries, that they were ways to harness certain energies from the, not just outside of the earth, not just from the air and the cosmos, but also from the inside, that inner sun you were talking about, whether you want to call them tectonic plates or crustal displacement or magma flow, gravity, whatever, that they were basically amplifiers. So is that part of your teachings as well? I'll start with Eduardo on this, because of the Maya and the pyramids. That's probably what they're most famous for.
I'd like to just say first, if I may, that this will actually show how we come together. My experience of, let's say, the pyramids, or anything for that matter, is always experiential. I always have an experience, and I'm shown, from this intelligence, here's what the energies are of the pyramid, and here's how you are a pyramid as well. And then I would feel all of the energy, and it would show me what that was about. Then, say I bring it up to Eduardo, and he says, "Oh, well, that's interesting. I just, read that synchronistically. I just read this material or saw this material, and it speaks to that." And so it's like we're bringing the inner, the internal and the external together. So the direct experience, and Eduardo has direct experiences too, obviously. But he has a wonderful way of bringing together all this wisdom, and then also integrating, what I have shared and what has come through me about this particular time in the calendar, in the cosmos, where we have this enormous opportunity to awaken to all of this data again that I was talking about earlier, that we can understand this within ourselves, not just with our rational thinking linear mind, but by employing or reanimating the technology that has been buried within us or suppressed. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
No, great.
Eduardo.
Oh, you have been my teacher.
M is my nickname in case you're getting confused.
Yeah.
Amateur initials.
Yeah. So it's so important for me to acknowledge that the understanding that she has brought through that made so much sense that I was getting all wrapped up in the physical aspects of it. For example, the pyramid. And finding out that below the pyramid in the earth is also where the sacred energy is coming from the center of the Mother Earth. And that's why they built the pyramids where they built them, because there are ley lines that are of energy that they were tapping into that we now call the electromagnetic frequency of our Earth. And these ley lines directly connected to the pyramid, the mid meaning in the middle, and pyro meaning within, the fire within the middle. All of that was important to understand because the elders of many indigenous peoples on planet Earth knew this. And they also knew how to build grids under the earth 25 feet below the level of Earth. They were creating these electromagnetic grids, if you will, that were connecting to the electromagnetic frequency of Earth so they could create power. And Nikola Tesla was trying to convince all of us that we needed to take a look at this a long time ago. But all the indigenous people knew it. And so the one thing I do definitely want to cover is how the serpent energy below each pyramid is almost more important than the pyramid itself, because it connects this, again, I'll use the word portal. If you take the pyramid of Chichen Itza, it's called the pyramid of Kukulkan, meaning the feathered serpent, but we take it to mean that it's a serpent that flies. Well, their understanding is that when you entered into the mouth of the serpent here on Earth, that you would travel through a wormhole to the stars, and they could come and go. Okay? Now, was that what was happening? I think so. And if you take a look at some of the work of Wayne Herschel out of the United Kingdom, And look at what he's found out about what was going on in Chaco Canyon, what was going on in not only Chichen Itza, but all over Mesoamerica, down in Inca world. So you see it gets exciting because we have this understanding now that it's all about light and it's all about going within. And this is the stuff that Eileen has brought through in her teachings of we must go within to dialogue with our Creator. Instead of trying to communicate out there somewhere, it's already there. And if you listen to what Christ and other masters have said, that the real thing we're looking for, I think the word that was used in the Bible was the kingdom, but I don't think that's the correct word. I think it was something like the important place is within. The kingdom of heaven is within us. And this important place, the portal, is within us, okay? So when you take a look at the Mayan teachings, and they have this T that's cut into the glyph of Ik, IQ, it means to breathe and go within through the portal that connects us to the stars. And if you look at all the ancient teachings, they're all going to say the same thing, that you have to go within in order to connect to your Creator.
It's true. I mean, Odin did the 9 days on the tree. I mean, walkabouts, vision quests.
And Eileen developed a whole understanding and put it in her book. And it was all revolving around the word Coyopa, which is a Mayan word for the serpent energy or the lightning within the blood, which is getting
Kundalini from Sanskrit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And is able to teach people how to dialogue out loud, yelling and screaming and crying and doing whatever we have to do, but to dialogue out loud so that our bodies could resonate with our voice through sound. And it's the combination, the energy of the sound that we're making as we're talking our truth out loud. We start to go within and we connect to this sacred place. And this sacred place is the pyramid within. It's that light within. You see how it all starts to make sense?
Sure, it's almost like if you're your own chalice, and and it's
you
it's
are.
The hermetic.
We are
so below, but inside.
Yes,
it's the Star of David. It's compacted into one vessel, and that's you.
And it is bioenergetic. It is a felt experience. So it's not something that we're just talking about. That's all we do. We do that so well, don't we? We love to talk about stuff like, oh yes, we should go within. Yes, we must go within. Okay, let's do it. And then it's fascinating to me because so many times I've worked with people, and you get to that space of, okay, here's some action that you can take. Here's something that you can do to begin this process of unpacking and then reigniting this technology within. But as soon as you can watch the programming, come up behind someone's eyes, and this glaze sets in. Like, okay, I'll do that. I got to do this now, or I got to go over here. Then the distractions start. I don't have time. Who has time, right, for this sort of thing? So it is fascinating because once you've gone within and had an experience, a bioenergetic experience, then you have a marker for how, oh yes, I felt that. That was real. That was a real marker. It wasn't just a talked about marker. And so then you can find that again, and you can build on it each time. So this is one of the things we do at Light Dialogic is we practice the dialogue. I bring through the transmissions. Eduardo teaches the Mayan wisdom and how that all comes together. So we do have experiencers there, like I mentioned before. But what we're finding is that when the experiencers talk to each other, whether you call yourself an experiencer or not, something happens that starts to unlock people. It's like they just kind of go, I'm not an experiencer, but this is feeding me. This is informing me and empowering me. and it's just unlocking something within me. So there's no plan for Light Dialogic. We show up. We have the certain events that we plan every month, and then it shows us. We're showing each other where this moves and grows and changes. But it has been referred to as an incubator from this inner intelligence that I brought through. That it's kind of like a multidimensional incubator for people to come and relax into it. I asked the members to tell me recently what give me 3 words to describe what this community is doing for you. And so much of it was, a safe space. I can practice being who I am. I don't have to think so much. I'm so much love, so much understanding and revelations, and it's supporting people in that inner journey, and then coming together to practice speaking that truth to each other instead of just keeping it inside. There's a place to come together. I didn't find that on regular social media. I desperately tried for a while to be a part of the experiencer groups, but it seemed like they were still in the a lot of the confusion around many different levels of experiencers. Some people have been at it for a while, and some people it just began. And that's not to say that's where we build a hierarchy. It's not a hierarchy. It's just simply that some people have engaged with this intelligence more than others. Some like to stay in the fear. So resonance we could never really, from what I could see, there were moments of resonance, but resonance is what my guidance is saying. This is so important right now, that you start to build a community that actually resonates, that isn't just fighting with each other or wanting to be the best or the winner, or that, there's no hierarchy. It's simply, who are you? What do you have to share with us? What's your data that you're receiving? Let's play with this. Let's see what unfolds.
Yeah.
Well, I can vouch that Eileen's definitely not trying to sell anything, because I've never had a potential guest try to give me so many opportunities to turn them down as guests as she did.
Well, it was step by step for me. We haven't actually talked a lot about this private community out in public, and this is fun, interesting. Thanks for bringing that up, because it was a process for me. It was like, okay, I'm not getting a no. I'm not getting a no. It seems like it might not be a fit, but I'm not getting a no. So energetically, it was never a no. And so that final question, I just gave you another out. Like, if you're not really interested in what you're reading and what you're seeing, we're totally fine with not showing up.
The funny thing
fine.
is that your final no was actually a thing that made me convinced that it was absolutely a yes.
Okay.
Because that's where I'm like, yeah, that's really, really, like, before I'm like, I don't really know what she's talking about. I mean,
what the hell's she talking about?
And I watched this, and then she told me, well, we're doing something else now, and I'm like, okay, then you sent me the final note. Are you sure you want to do it? Watch this or read this, and I did. I'm like, yeah, I absolutely want that on there. Are you kidding me? So, but listen, I also get, first of all, we're strangers. Second of all, the show is called Garden of Doom. It's not exactly on brand for what you're trying to, for the message you're trying to get out there.
Hey, we know what doom feels like. Trust me.
Jeff, if I may add something, when I looked at your logo and I saw the skeleton, it didn't frighten me, because we have a glyph, a day sign, that is the skeleton's head, and it's referred to as Kame. And Kame is death and birth, but they happen in the exact same moment. That there is no death. It's only transformation. And so I don't have a problem with seeing, I have 2 T-shirts with the skull on my chest, right? And so it's also an understanding that it's sometimes through the movement we call death that we actually get it, that we finally understand that there is no death. There's only transformation. And so the garden would be the place where we would say, this is where we plant the seeds for the future. These are the seeds, light seeds, that are going to help us in the future. And this is what I heard in your opening monologues there of all the different voices. And what you were saying is that we have to, we have to change. No question about it. We do. And it's through understanding who we really are that we have to start at that place.
Yeah. So I want to pick up on that. The paradigm shift that I was talking about earlier, which you both seem to agree with, that was only sort of phase one. And that was a major phase. But phase two seems to have been to take the serpent, which was associated with water and fertility and the feminine, and turn it into the bad guy, where ultimately right now the serpent is basically the devil, the enemy of everything. And I think that if everybody looks at the history of pretty much everywhere, every place except for the Far East, where they never bought into that, the serpent was always and remains sort of good luck and good fortune. But everywhere that typically the Indo-European languages took over or had influence, the serpent at some point not immediately became the bad guy, and then not just a bad guy, a rival, something to be slain, whether it's Leviathan or Trigon or the Hydra or whatever. And that's not how the serpent started, and that's not where the serpent is in a lot of cultures, including this one. So that was phase two. Phase three is not really phase three. This is question three, which is where I think you want to get to, because I talked to a lot of guests about what they call the Great Reset. And the Great Reset doesn't always mean the same thing to all people, but it's in a similar vein. And it's never really something good unless you follow the entire progression, that if you accept X, Y, Z, you will be saved and you will come out at the end of, Kingdom Come or whatever. I don't mean to pick on that particular one, but that's the most commonly known. What you're saying is the Great Reset is not necessarily something bad at all. It's actually something positive, that if you embrace these awakenings, if you get in touch with your inner kingdom, that this is actually a great opportunity. For all the doomsayers out there, including myself, in my lifetime, however bad we are to each other, we've gone from 4 billion people to 8 billion people. We just crossed it. So, I mean, we're clearly not doing bad well enough. I mean, we're doing something right to at least multiply, if not being fruitful. So let's take it from there. So let's take your version of the reset. I don't mean to put words in your mouth. I just don't know another term. But, what is your interpretation of the reset, and how should people approach it, embrace it, go forward from here? Because you said this moment in time. What is it about this moment in time? Is there something to do with the calendar that?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should start with that then.
Yeah, go ahead, Eduardo. The reset to me is what we've been talking about. It's like you can remember who you are. Prime time to do that.
It's like coming out of the cave into the sunlight. When you've been in the cave for 13,000 years and you come out into the sunlight, it's overwhelming. It's difficult to deal with because you're not used to it. And that reset is the realization that there's more rather than just the tunnel. There's more than just living in the darkness. And as we start to recognize that there's more, the heart begins to have coherence with other hearts that have come out of their cave. And as we come out of those caves and we see each other, that there's this hope, that the seed of hope is planted in the garden. And I actually feel that that's what's happening. And Eileen brought through a message back in 20 that we listened to the last couple of days, that I listened to a couple of times, that talks about this kind of a reset. What's the word that you use in that message, Em? It was the recovery, like to understand our accepting grace. The acceptance of our grace was difficult to do for human beings when they had no idea they were so amazing and wonderful and fantastic. And I think that's the great reset, in my opinion.
Right. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of the one I sent you, but it is, I love that analogy of coming out of the cave, and it's like you could use the metaphor of Plato's cave, in that case too. That we're seeing each other, we're looking each other in the eye, and this is really what we're developing at Light Dialogic, and it's not intended to just be online. The overall vision that came after we did a fire ceremony at Chaco Canyon, which is another whole story. We could do a whole conversation on Chaco Canyon. It was to develop, to build this space for resonance, and we have about a couple of dozen members now, and just incredible people, incredible beings that are showing up, and they're either saying, I don't really know why I'm here, but I feel like I should be here, right? To people who are like, I've been waiting for something like this. I want to connect with others like me who are coming online, and we can see, you can see what's happening in the world. You don't necessarily react to it. It's not like something that affects you. It's because once you come online, you realize, that it's not to fix things out there. It's to help people reconnect within so that they know who they are and the bullshit doesn't work. No matter what political affiliation you have, the bullshit is everywhere. True. Everywhere. There isn't one that's good and one that's bad. That's the trap. That's what keeps people recycling in this matrix. It's like it's always the fight, the back and forth fight. But once you reset, right, within your consciousness, it's all about consciousness. Once you reset that, you start to become aware of so much more, not just in a multidimensional way, which is your original design according to this intelligence that I translate. This is how we were designed, and we have been suppressed. Now, nobody has any power over us unless we agree to give that power on some level. It's probably mostly unconscious for people, but that's the point. Is as long as you're suppressing all of this unconscious wounding and trauma, not just your own, but multi-generations, ancestral trauma, you can be tricked if you are not actively healing and dialoguing with something greater than, this light, this presence, I should say, because it's a palpable feeling presence that guides. And it is waking a lot of people up. And when I say wake up, I don't mean that you just start to see, the cabal and this and that. It's like, yeah. Get over it. It's you that needs to address this within your own consciousness. And that's what transforms our world. Nothing else.
I think that you're 100% correct on that. Eduardo, maybe you can take I was about to say take a stab again. I'm not going to.
Get your knife out, Eduardo.
What part of the Mayan calendar or interpretation of precession/time makes this the time, the synchronicity, the time to embrace this? Why is this the best time or the essential time to do so?
Okay, good question. When we take a look at the December 21st, 2012, that day after was called the Day of the New Sun. In the long count calendar system, we went from the 12th Baktun and then 19 Katun, 19 Tun, 19 Wan Kanil, all of these old numbers switched over to 13. We have it in the Ki'iche languages, Oshlahu, 0, 0, 0, 0. And we switched over to the 13th Baktun, and then the Mayan teachings in the sacred calendar, Oshlahu or 13 means transformation. So we're now in this time of transformation, and they call it the new sun. So we went in on December 22nd, 2012, we went into the first day of the Baktun, the 13th Baktun, and we went out of 4 Akpu, which was the day of the sun, into 5 Emosh, which is time of many, many changes and much insanity and a lot of things that were going to be happening. And then we went quickly in to this time of us recognizing that we are so much more. So that, in a nutshell, is what occurred. And interestingly enough, that night, the sun rose the next morning in the so-called ring of the ball court, and it's actually the dark rift in the Milky Way. And that ring in the ball court is the sun going through this hole, and that occurred all on December 21st, 2012. So it wasn't the end of the world, but it was the beginning of a new time, a new era, a new way of feeling, a new way of thinking, you see. So in 13 Baktun, it is the transformation of human consciousness and also an awareness that we have to do something different. And we can't keep doing things the way we've been doing them because we're destroying this beautiful planet. We have to stop.
Is this one of those 5 ages of man, or is that an entirely different concept?
Well, they call it
like the Hopis.
They call it the fifth sun. Yes, the Maya call it the fifth sun, and I think that the Azteca call it the 6th sun, or vice versa. I'm confused about that right now, but the point is that it is a new light, and there are many people who will disagree with this, but my teacher said to me that we will enter into this photon belt of the Pleiades, of Alcyone, of Hun Hunakpu. We will enter into this photon band of light that's being produced by our central sun. And we've been all moving like this in a horizontal movement. And now, as we entered into the sun, which this new light that's coming, and it's in a vertical position, we're now in that light. And that is the critical point that Eileen has been talking about for a long time in her information that she's been getting. We are entering into this new time when human beings will consciously reset. We will have a reset in all of us. Now, what we do after that moment is up to us, because everybody has a choice.
All right. That is wonderful. How can folks follow or support you or join up or join the learnings? What can you tell us about that?
The URL is community.lightdialogic.com, and we actually still have a 2-week free trial up. It's a subscription. You can come in and just explore, and if it's not for you, you can leave. So we have that for people to just kind of come in and get a feel and see if it's for them or not. It's there for people to just test the waters.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other social media? Your book? Anything like that?
Eduardo has a book. I have a book. Eduardo, you want to talk about your book?
My book is called Yaxel. It's Yaxel. We pronounce X as sh in Ki'iche. So it's Yaxel the Giver. And I wrote it as a novel to tell a story about how all of these Mayan calendar systems work in our daily lives. And it is in communication with a being who comes through a portal and shows up in the earth in New Mexico.
Very cool.
It's a great story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of wisdom in it.
Yeah.
How do you get a book?
You can go on Apple Books, or you can email us, and I'll get you information on how to get the book. Unfortunately, we don't market ourselves the way that most people do. we even though I could, because I used to have many clients who trusted me as a marketing and advertising guy.
We worked together for years in marketing and advertising, television, and
we know how to do it.
Yeah.
We're just very conscious of how damaging it may be sometimes to have an overabundance of commercial messages where we feel like people are being bombarded mentally and in an angry voice kind of way. Many people are trying to sell you things you really don't need, and so we're very critical of that kind of approach. However, my book can be made available, and if they want, they can send an email to 11baatz@gmail.com and let me know that you're interested in my book, and I'll be glad to send you a copy. And my name is it's under Eduardo Griego. And Eileen's book, which she finished writing it here in Colorado. Wonderful book, tells the story, really does.
That's on Amazon. Koyopa, Contact Within. Koyopa, Koyopa, Contact Within. The Plumed Serpent Rises, meaning that this is actually something that happens within.
Yeah.
Kukulkan, or the flying serpent, is. I'm understanding everything now. You understand it once you go within and you go, oh, that's what that symbol means. That's what that symbol means, right? And I also did a 13-episode audiobook podcast called Translating Infinity. And it goes from the beginning of my story all the way to, it's still ongoing. But I ended it at 13 episodes. And that, if people are interested in the story of contact and the evolution of it in my life and, through my perception and my worldview, I just felt like I needed to capture it all, beyond just a little bit more detail than what I brought through with the book.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that the 13 was not by accident at all. That was...
Actually, it was. It was like, oh, well, this is pretty perfect. Yeah. I feel like I'm complete with this. Yeah.
The 13 of bad luck is really very recent and over, one particular event, as I understand it, which is strange. 13 everywhere else is pretty special.
Yes.
There's so much programming to move us away from the special things, by calling them demonic.
Yeah.
And you find out, that's, it's a way to keep us in fear. It's a way to extract our energy. As long as we don't know what the hell's going on and we don't know who we are, they can profit off of it big time. So once we remember who we are, and this is doable. This is not, people like to call this woo. Well, I dare you to enter into this and feel all that you can feel about who you are and what comes up for you to look at and to heal and to release and to allow more of this light in. We're going to be watching more and more people, go crazy, if you will, because this is extreme high frequency light coming in. And if you're not opening to it and not ready, it's going to make you crazy. So just know that when you're feeling off balance, it's okay. It's okay to feel off balance. It's okay to feel crazy in this world, because this is an insane way to live, with all of these limitations and pretending to be smaller than we are. That's what makes us crazy. And you have the power to direct your attention and intention inward, and to rediscover this source power that you're connected to.
Well, two last things from this end. Most of you know that I'm a professional wrestling fan, and I'm sure that Eileen and Eduardo have gathered that from seeing my shirt and the things behind me, because I'm sure I'm not.
Yeah.
And we're in professional wrestling. When you go, woo, that's a good thing. So woo is okay in our world.
Good. I like it.
And I have tried to do outros the same way manually that I did the intro, and they've been nothing but disastrous. But I just want you all to know, if there was an outro, and there won't be, it would have been CNC's Dance Factory. We've got the power. We're just talking about how it's getting kind of hectic, but I've got the power. So
we have the power. Yes, I love it.
So you all know the song. All of it played in your own head. But I want to thank Eileen and Eduardo, who might have been reluctant to come on, but they came on board. I think that you had a pleasant time. I did. I thought it was fabulous.
Absolutely. It was great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Well, wonderful. Thanks to both of you. And folks, thank you for tuning in. Give them a follow, buy their books, check out the program, at least take advantage of the free 2-week trial. Why not? What have you got to lose? And, give us a rating, a review, a referral. Now I feel guilty about marketing myself. All of you stop listening. Be done. I love it too. All right, everyone. Take care. Thanks a lot. And listen to us next week in Garden Doom. Thanks again to the guests, Eileen and Eduardo.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.